Hello, everyone. Today, we're going to actually get some wonderful breakfast cereals to do an experiment to consume these for about a month. So we're going to pick up some heart-healthy whole grain cereals, right? Most of them anyway, and maybe some instant oatmeal variety pack. And why not even just add this kind breakfast bars, okay, into the mix? And I'm being very sarcastic. I'm not going to eat these products, but I'm going to tell you the effects of this because I have eaten this for over 28 years. So what would actually happen to you if you had cereal to your breakfast every morning? Now, as a child, your metabolism, your body is not yet damaged, probably because you haven't done this chronically. But over the years, it starts to build up. It creates problems. But I think many children can at least get away with it temporarily because they don't yet have damage with their mitochondria. They have a very good what's called metabolic flexibility, where they are able to burn off a lot of this extra sugar. But what happens over time is not good. Let's just first take this Fruity Pebbles cereal right here. Now, 1 cup of this will give you about 160 calories, about 18 grams of sugar, which comes out to about 4.5 teaspoons of actual sugar. Now, typically, if we look at sugar, like table sugar, which is not really in there, but let's just say it was, that would roughly kind of calculate on the glycemic index to be about 75, which is high, but it's not 100. So you're talking about every cup, you're getting 4.5 teaspoons of sugar. Okay, that's a lot. But there's some hidden carbs, and that has to do with the total carbohydrates. Because if we look at the #1 ingredient on this, it's rice, okay, as in rice flour. And the glycemic index of rice flour is about 95. So in other words, this rice flour, this carbohydrate, this main carbohydrate in this product, acts more to stimulate your blood sugars than actual sugar. But it's not classified as a sugar. It's classified as a starch. And of course, there is 0 fiber. So there's nothing to buffer this blood sugar response. And so there's no net carbs. But basically, we can put this under the category of sugar because it's going to act like sugar. So if we take that in consideration, we don't just have 4.5 teaspoons of sugar. We have 9 teaspoons for every cup. Okay, that's how much sugar whoever eats that is getting and acting on the blood sugars. But here's the big question. How many of you, or even your children, consume only 1 little cup of this cereal when they're sitting down for breakfast? They might do more than 1 cup. And let's just pretend it's 4 cups. That's pretty much what I used to have. Now it comes out to 36 teaspoons of sugar in that 1 breakfast every morning. Can you imagine what that's going to do to your blood sugars and how hungry you're going to be mid-morning and how tired you're going to be mentally? Not to mention what this is doing to other parts of your organs. All right, the next concept I want to talk about is healthy whole grains. Let's first just pretend that whole grains are healthy, right? And so what people tend to think about that is if I add this whole grain, this healthy thing, on top of all the other bad things like sugar, it makes it now healthier, right? Well, let's take a look at a couple things. When you add sugar to protein in there, that's like the gluten, or to fat, and there's oils in these cereals as well, you start to create this thing called glycation. Glycation simply is the binding of a sugar molecule to a fat or to a protein. And those tend to accumulate and build up in the body, and they become unusable. And the term for that is AGEs. They turn into what's called advanced glycation end products, which create a lot of inflammation, disease, insulin resistance, diabetic syndrome, premature aging, and all sorts of other issues. So just because something is healthy in something that's not healthy doesn't make it healthy. Not to mention that they add some synthetic vitamins, okay? And the minerals that they're using, like reduced iron, is called elemental mineral. It's not some easily absorbable mineral. It's basically in a form that you would see in the earth. It's elemental, which is a completely different chemical structure than you would get from eating beef to get your iron or spinach to get your iron. So they have ascorbic acid, which by the way is made from cornstarch and sulfuric acid, reduced iron, elemental, and then you got B3, B2, B1, folic acid, B12, which Again, those are synthetic. So some of those can be coming from petroleum and other chemicals. Here's the problem with these vitamins. When you're taking even this version of vitamin C, which I don't even consider it a vitamin C, but ascorbic acid and sugar at the same time, they're both very similar in chemical makeup. So what happens is the body is going to take in the sugar before the vitamin C. This is why you really can't absorb vitamin C in the presence of sugar, okay? And then also all this sugar is going to kind of nullify any of these vitamins right here, simply because it requires a lot of these vitamins to metabolize those carbohydrates. So if you think you're getting something special when it says something like a good source of 8 vitamins and minerals, I don't think it's that special. Now, we were assuming that this whole grain is very healthy, but here's the problem with whole grains. It has gluten in it, okay? It has gluten. Gluten is the protein or a bunch of different proteins in grains, especially wheat and other grains, that is the only protein that our bodies can't digest. And so many people have either an allergy to it or an intolerance to it, and it creates inflammation in our gut. Whole grains also contain a good amount of phytic acid. Phytic acid also blocks minerals, especially zinc. In fact, many children all over the world are deficient in zinc because they rely on cereal. Okay, so the cereal comes with a package. You'll say, well, okay, we'll take the protein out, gluten out, and we'll take out the phytates by refining it. Now it becomes refined grains, right? We create more of a blood sugar spike. Another thing that's interesting about the research on whole grains, it's many times compared to refined grains. So the next time you see a grain study, look at what it's comparing it to. What are the controls, right? If you compare whole grains to refined grains, there's going to be an improvement. Okay, so that's kind of what you have to realize. Yes, it's a step up, but does it make it a health food? That's the big question. The other problem with cereals is the amount of GMOs, genetically modified food, basically. I mean, let's just take a look at some of the ingredients. Corn, mostly GMO, okay, like 95% of all the corn is GMO. Beet sugar, GMO. Dextrose, corn syrup. Wheat flour is not genetically modified, but they spray it with glyphosate, which is like Roundup Ready. And that's really the whole goal of GMO, is to make it resistant to glyphosate so they can spray it and kill the weeds, but not the actual plant. So the plants now are resisting that, and they're also killing insects because they give off the certain chemicals. So is that a healthy thing? Research will tell us. Modified food starch usually comes from corn, cottonseed oil. Cotton is GMO, believe it or not. Maltodextrin usually comes from corn or other starches, GMO. Oats is usually not GMO, but it's sprayed with glyphosate. Then you have soluble corn fiber. These are the ingredients of a box of cereal. And for many years, people are fighting to put GMOs on the label so they can see this, but there's been a huge pushback by these companies not to put it on there. So what they did, they came up with a better idea. Now they are transparent, but they don't use the word GMO. They use another word called bioengineered food ingredient. That means GMO. You can kind of see in fine print right down here where that is. There's other things like artificial colorings, BHT and BHA, which are preservatives, which are known to act like estrogen in the body. Sometimes they want a convenient, maybe a better version of these cereals. So they'll have like a breakfast kind of a cereal bar, right? Sustained energy from 100% whole grains, gluten-free. Okay, here's the problem, total carbohydrate. 29 grams, okay, with 3 grams of fiber. Plus, on top of that, we have added sugars, 6 grams of added sugar per serving. So there's a lot of sugar. They add some protein in there. Remember the glycation when you combine it? So the first ingredient is oats, then tapioca syrup, okay, then peanuts, then brown rice flour, okay, then we have cane sugar, peanut butter, canola oil, raisin paste, peanut oil, peanut flour, millet, sea salt, buckwheat. So anyway, I think this may, for some people, make you very tired. A real quick story about my own health. This is like a really big turning point in my entire life. For years, I had blood sugar problems. I had a lot of health problems. I had a lot of brain fog. I was irritable, depressed. I couldn't wake up in the morning until 11, probably 11:30. So as I was searching for answers, I stumbled on this book called Mastering the Zone. Okay. And I read the first chapter. That's the only thing I ever read from that book. And it mentioned something about blood sugar and refined carbs and insulin. Somehow I kind of missed this in school. But the next day, okay, I stopped eating all my different breakfast foods, okay, because I used to have cereal and a muffin for breakfast every morning, okay, to some buffalo burger. That's what I had. It was like a huge shift. Someone took this helmet of brain fog off of my head, like within a few minutes, and I felt so good. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So that's really what started the whole reversal of all my health problems, of just getting off this sugar, especially for breakfast. And of course, after this, I wrote a book on this, recommending that everyone should have protein for breakfast. Recently updated that and, made some improvements. You don't even need a breakfast, okay? Just ride the wave, have your first meal at lunch, and you'll do fine. A couple last points about this topic, okay? Cereal, AKA ultra-processed food. And I wouldn't even call it food because it doesn't resemble food. It's junk food, okay? And 67% of a child's calories are ultra-processed food from junk food. So this is junk food. And very unfortunately, if you go to the grocery store, there's a lot of it. 83 or 84% of all the calories in grocery stores are ultra-processed food. So anyway, what happens when you consume cereal every morning for a month? You're going to end up like I did, pre-diabetic, completely exhausted all the time, can't wake up in the morning, grouchy, depressed, anxiety, arthritic, brain fog, not to mention weight gain, fatty liver, etc., etc. So I want to propose an idea. If you do cereals or your children do cereals, just try this for one day. Switch that breakfast to a protein breakfast, steak and eggs, buffalo burger, fish, whatever. Just have protein and just watch how much better you feel from that one tiny little change. And then you decide what you should eat. Now, because of the censoring and the suppressing of the algorithms on YouTube, it's becoming more difficult to find my content. And there's a lot of content that I cannot put on YouTube, unfortunately. So to make sure you have full access of all my information, go to drberg.com and subscribe to my newsletter by clicking the link down below in the description. I will see you on the other side.